Hello everyone and welcome to Builderment. We're here to start a new game today with the goal of reaching 2.8 Earth tokens per minute. While it may not sound like a lot, it will require nearly 3,600 extractors, processing close to 110,000 ore every minute. Let's do a new game. This is my starting seed in case you're interested. I adjust the resource amount to 200% to get us enough ore to meet the goal of 2.8 Earth tokens per minute. Alright, this is our map with resources dotted all over across the map: iron, copper, coal, stone, a whole bunch of other stuff. I'll be designing all my factories based on endgame ratios, so I'll be basing belt speeds on 480 per minute, even though at the beginning we can only do 150 items per minute. I'll be basing my extractors on 30 per minute, which is the highest it can do without being boosted. I will need to boost some of the iron because I need 797 iron nodes and this map only has 768. So I will be using every single iron node on the map, as well as 95% of the rest of the items on the map. So basically all these little resources you see dotted along will be used up. So I'm going to build out all my factories from the get-go to the endgame ratios. So I will be doing some pretty large builds from the start, so they won't be fully efficient in the beginning because they will be way oversized for what they need to be. So the basics of the game here are: we place these extractors on these resource nodes, we drag them conveyor belts off of them into factories to process that material into different recipes. They get more complicated as the game goes on in order to process finally an Earth token at the end. We're aiming for 2.8 Earth tokens per minute, which is the equivalent of 2 Earth token buildings operating at 100% efficiency. So all we do is drag a conveyor belt here. It'll slowly process. This one is wood, so it's shooting out logs. And this is a research lab. We can have up to 3 research labs per map. The tech tree up here is quite large. There's a lot of stuff to unlock. But basically, this one right here, we've delivered 10 logs to the research lab, so it has unlocked the workshop and wood plank. So if we click on unlock, here we go. Now next thing up is we have to process planks into wood frames. I'm going to set up a small starter factory to get us to the point that we unlock advanced belts and the belt splitter. It's hard to design a proper factory without them, without the belt splitters and underground belts. So I'm going to do a quick little factory to get us up and running, which will give us some cash. Here's our starter factory. We have wood being processed in the lower corner here, workshop turning logs into planks, and then another workshop turning the planks into wood frames. Over here we have iron being smelted into ingots, and then ingots being turned into iron gears. Copper, something similar up top here. We have copper being smelted in a furnace, sent to a workshop being turned into wire. And then I threw some stone extractors on here just to get us some extra money coming into the research lab. That should give us a little bit of money to work with to build from. We've got some unlocks to do already. We can unlock decorative trees, which I actually intend on using to help me label some of my factories. We have copper wire, workshop upgrade, workshop tier 2, so it will process items faster. We have electromagnets that we've unlocked. That'll be our first big build that we do. We've unlocked a belt speed upgrade already, so this is 100 gears, so it'll work on the next one. I'm actually going to build a iron gear factory, a pretty huge one, because this whole chain of unlocks is all for belt upgrades. Like this one down here requires 80,000 iron gears. These require 100,000 and 150,000, so quite a bit of iron gears. So I'm going to do a iron gear build right now just to get iron gears being pumped into the research lab so we can unlock those faster. And we'll unlock this extractor upgrade. So first up is the iron gear factory, and then we'll do an electromagnet factory as soon as we select a spot on the map. Alright, near the top left of your screen here, I've built a iron gear factory. Somewhere over here. It's producing iron gears. We're going to let this run for most of the game, upgrade it as we get the cash to do so. But this will help us get through some of the belt upgrades. And I've come down to the bottom here, and I've drawn these two roads or conveyor belt lines here to kind of guide us in our factory creation. I'm going to try to fit all of the builds within inside these lines, so that way all the materials will be pumped into here, keep it nice and organized. Have kind of a mini bus above and below it to pump materials down to where they need to be. So EM here, the electromagnet build, is going to require these furnaces smelting iron. I'll need 19 furnaces, so 5 sets of 4 would be 20. I'm going to do it based on full belts, so full belt would be 480. So I'll make sure each line can process up to a full belt. These will be processing our copper into copper ingots. This is the big portion of the build. It will require, we're going to need to pump in 10,140 copper per minute. So that is 22 full belts of copper coming into this build. These will turn the copper into copper wire. And then finally the machine shop down here will turn iron and copper wire into electromagnets. Each one will do 7.5, but we're going to upgrade it to 300%. So that's 22.5 per machine, and we'll need 50 of those. So the grand total we'll be creating is 1,125 electromagnets per minute. Okay, quick update before this factory gets too congested and confusing. The two lines coming in up top here are going to be the iron. It's quite complicated since there's no priority splitters in this game, you're stuck basically trying to match up numbers of extractors to belts. So if you want 480 on a belt, you would put 16 extractors on it. If you want less than that, you would do, 10 extractors would give you 300 items per minute. So, and then I'm still stuck with trying to match up at the end here. These two belts merge, so it's going to take half from this line and half from this line. But hopefully it'll work out. So then there's going to be 7, I believe, lines of copper coming in from the bottom here, and they'll be spread out to one line to each of these 4 sets. And these machine shops, again, because no priority splitters or anything like that, I really only need 2.3 machine shops per set of 4 furnaces. But so I have to throw a third one on there, knowing that the third one won't operate at full efficiency. But in the end, it'll still pump out what we need to pump out, even though there's extra machines. So it seems like kind of a waste, but it's the best we can do. So let's get some ore mined to send it down to the factory. Right now I'm working with copper. However, all resources in this game are mined the exact same way. So I'll just show you this once and then skip over the rest of it, because it's a good chunk of your time is spent mining materials in this game and setting up belts. But basically I set up 16 extractors per belt. That gives you a maximum of 480 per minute, which is the maximum belt can carry with the Earth grade token upgrades. If I need less material than that, I just set up less extractors on a belt instead of trying to mess around with splitting belts to get the right amount of material on it, but sometimes it's unavoidable. A good chunk of your time is spent doing this, because there's going to be roughly 3,500 extractors I have to set up during this playthrough. Okay, over 400 extractors later, we are up and running. Quite a bit of belts, all the way from the far right hand side of the belt map, all the way in. Zoom in, you can see it doesn't look that big, but when you start zooming in there, you realize how much material is on these belts. So that comes up to the factory. And we're making 3 sets of them. This one's a little funky because I had to throw an extra one in there to get my 84.5 that I need to make the 1,125 electromagnets per minute. So yeah, up and running, looks good. Everything took a while to get here, but it is running. I've just put it on the 3 belts right now, and I threw our last research lab down here, pumping it all into there. So we have quite a bit of money coming in now. Check the research tree where we can unlock some of the stuff here. Iron gear statue. Furnace upgrade, that's good. Metal frames is next. And so we're gonna unlock silicon pretty quickly because we're already doing stone in our starter factory. So that'll be done. We'll get circuitry unlocked next, which would be copper wire and silicone. We're actually going to do that before we do metal frames, because I want metal frames farther down the factory line. Alright, logic circuits are up next. That's going to be made in these machine shops here. We're going to need a total of 18 of them. They require copper wire and silicone. Copper wire we did for the last build, so that'll be basically the same. 4 furnaces smelting, 4 workshops turning the smelted copper into wire. And up here we have 4 workshops turning stone into sand, and then these 3 furnaces turning sand into silicone. That all needs to be put into 18 of these machine shops, making approximately 540 logic circuits per minute. So the logic circuit build is done. It has workshops making sand into furnaces making silicone into the machine shop making logic circuits, wire we've done before, and it worked out so that full belt can do 4 furnaces of copper as we did previously. However, a full belt of stone can do 4.67 workshops once fully upgraded. So I had to do a little bit of overflow and kick it out to the bottom here, and then it all goes up to the top and goes into the last set of buildings. So that looks pretty good when you zoom out. Looks nice and clean. I put a row of trees and cones in here to segregate the factories. Once we unlock walls, I'll probably replace that with a wall. But that's EM for electromagnets, LC for logic circuits. And next up is metal frames. I'm going to do a frame factory that will make wood frames, metal frames, as well as industrial frames that we'll unlock later. So preliminary buildings for metal frames would be these 10 workshops, as well as these 10 workshops making planks, these 5 and these 5 making wood frames. These furnaces here would be making smelting iron, and these 15 workshops down here will be making iron plating. Those iron plating and wood frames will be sent to 15 of these machine shops making metal frames. Metal frames laid out nicely. We have some room in the upper right corner here for industrial frames once we unlock them. Otherwise, we have wood frames being made down here, and iron plates being made over here. All going into the machine shops making metal frames. Those are currently just being sent out to the research lab, which will clean this area up once we unlock some other stuff. But it's starting to get pretty congested down here. We can see all the belts we have coming through, carrying quite a bit of material, and we're just at the beginning of the game, so it's a crazy amount of material. But let's check the tech tree. We've got a whole bunch of unlocks. Extractor upgrade here will be done shortly with metal frames. I've been pumping in some coal, so we unlocked coal power. That's how we boost the nodes. We unlocked Mr. Snowman. Logic circuit statue. Robotic arms can pull stuff off belts. You can set a filter on them. They come in handy sometimes. And the next build would be computers. So logic circuits and metal frames unlock computers, and they require heat sinks as well. So that'll be our next build. Computers are up and running. We have copper coming in from the north, being made into heat sinks. Half the heat sinks will eventually go over to this build over here, which I didn't have the buildings unlocked yet, so I'm just guessing the size of them because I know there's 4 inputs. But this is a future build for supercomputers. These are computer factories down here, the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right now they're grabbing metal frames from, I started a mini bus down here from all the stuff we've been producing to start to bring it down so we can use it where it's needed. And so it's pulling logic circuits and metal frames from that bus and making computers out of them. Computers are going to go up here. Half of them are going to go to the supercomputer build. Half of them will go back down to the bus. So that unlocks some stuff for us. Looks like we got the machine shop upgrade, robotic arm upgrade, and steel. Steel's going to be a pretty large build, I think, so we'll start looking at that in a second. Alright, well, steel is not a complicated build, it is a super involved build. All it takes is these forges. One forge making graphite can pump out graphite at 15 per minute. Takes in coal and wood. And then one graphite machine can supply 2 machines making steel because it requires 7.5 graphite per minute. So 2 of those would be 15 per minute, which matches the graphite. But we are going to need a whole bunch of ore because it requires 45 per minute. So when we upgrade this to tier 4, 300%, it's going to require 135 ore per minute. And I calculated out I need 126 forges fully upgraded making steel. So that's going to be over 17,000 iron ore per minute coming in, which is equivalent to 36 full belts of iron. So, and then we'll need 6 or 18 full belts of wood and coal. So it's going to be a super, super large build. Alright, this is a steel build, although it doesn't look very complicated, it is quite a bit of a math problem. So we have these 4 buildings making graphite, these buildings here making steel. Steel requires graphite and iron ore. So one of these making graphite can supply 2 of these making steel, so it's 1-to-2 ratio. So basically a full belt, if I can bring a full belt in here of coal and a full belt of wood, it can supply 3.55 of these. So when I'm doing the math, I just got to remember that even though this pumps out 15 per minute, it's not 15 times 4, it's actually 15.355. Because that's what a full belt of coal and wood can supply. And that way we don't waste any material and don't have to worry about overflow. These 4 buildings will consume a full belt. So if I zoom out, it just happens to work out that these 4 buildings here, which are actually operating at 3.55, just like the graphite is, requires a full belt of iron ore. So these 4 buildings will supply graphite to these 8 buildings, and then these 8 buildings will need 2 full belts of iron ore. If I do that with these in this whole set will make a full belt of steel. I need 6 of these setups to get all the steel I need, which is roughly 2,835 steel per minute. I've set it up above the factory because it's going to be quite a huge build and I don't want it to take up the whole factory, so this looks nice and organized. We're going to keep it that way and just put a nice giant concrete build up here. The other problem is there's not enough iron on the map to support a build of this size, so I'm going to have to boost it. Basically, you put a coal power plant inside the ore patches and it boosts them by 20%. So instead of an extractor making 30 per minute, extractor will make 36 per minute. Let's get this factory set up. We'll just bring the 2 belts of iron ore in, one going this way, one coming in, going up to the top. And then it's really easy to move stuff in this game. You can just select a whole bunch of stuff, move it where you want to. Sometimes you have to adjust the belts afterwards, but overall it's super easy to move stuff. So let's separate these belts out so that one belt of iron is going to the top, one belt of iron is going to the bottom. And remove that merger. Now we can just rotate these belts real quick so that the bottom one goes to the top. Again, super easy to rotate lots of belts. And all that's left is to bring this graphite into the middle, put a splitter in and put half of it going up, half of it going down.
It's time to set up a boosted mine. There's not enough iron on the map to accommodate the 2.8 earth tokens per minute that I'm trying to accomplish. So I'm going to have to boost some of these iron patches to get more iron out of the map. The coal-powered plants basically provide a 20% boost to the productivity, so instead of mining 30 per minute, they can mine 36 per minute. But they do require coal to operate. I'm just going to select a couple coal nodes right now and set them up, send them up that way. However, I will be sending a full belt of coal up the map to the rest of the iron patches so that I can boost each iron patch so that I have enough to accomplish the earth tokens. But just drag that belt up there and then supply coal to each one of the power plants. This patch worked out well, but sometimes you can't cover all the nodes in the patch. So there's 3 or 4 that don't fit, and it's not worth setting up a belt of coal just to get 3 nodes at a 20% efficiency bump. So you cover most you can. I found that if you do 13 extractors per belt, that gives you 468, and then I take one boosted node and divide it by 3 with a belt splitter, and that sends an extra 12 to each belt, which gives you the 480. So it doesn't work out as nice as the 16 extractors per belt, because you have to do some funky splitting. But then I'm just copying belts down. It's just easier to select belts since you can't drag them in reverse. So just select a big chunk of belts and copy them down. And then here, when I cross the belts, I'll have to, right now my underground belts can only reach 4 tiles gap. So I haven't got the upgrade yet to increase that, so I'll have to just copy the underground belts over to make another hole for the belts to come through. But it's pretty easy to do. You just copy it and set it up and then drag the belts around, and off you go. So that'll get iron down to the factory.
Alright, that took a good chunk of time, but steel's up and running. Got iron, wood, and coal coming in, mixed up to make graphite, and then iron ore and graphite make steel. So I've got 6 full setups of these done. See them all right there. I had to drag in quite a bit of material. You can see all that full belts of iron coming in, and wood and coal. So quite a bit of material, and we're making a lot more than a full belt of steel right now. I can't even sell it as fast as I'm making it, but that will change once we upgrade our belt speed and buildings to stuff that uses steel. So next up is steel rods, which should be relatively easy, as well as batteries. Batteries use more graphite, which I've just finished making tons of, but I'm going to have to make tons more. So looking forward to that. Alright, so batteries are up next. Got 8 forges here making graphite. They'll be shipped over to the battery factory along with the electromagnets coming off the bus. Got 3 sets of these going on. So I just got to bring some belts in, and I actually have to unlock the batteries yet because they're not unlocked. The recipe's not in here yet because I forgot to ship graphite to the research lab. So once I get graphite going, I'll ship that in and unlock batteries. Batteries need electromagnets, so we got to get this area down here straightened out. Probably move the research lab down a little bit and get this bus cleaned up a little bit so we can have the electromagnets coming down and get computers separated off onto their own line. Just get this area cleaned up. That looks a little better. Got everything flowing down the bus here. Electromagnets are flowing to the battery factory. Batteries are being made kind of slowly right now, but we don't need a whole lot of them, so I guess it works fine. So we have on the bus right now, we have metal frames, logic circuits, batteries, and computers. Electromagnets I'm not forwarding to the research lab right now because I'm using everything in the battery factory. So that unlocks the next thing to build would be rotors and motors. So we'll build a factory for that, but that's going to be in the next episode. I'll leave you with what we've accomplished in this episode. It's looking pretty organized, I think. Looking like a pretty good factory so far. So, not too bad in a day's work. That'll do it for this episode. Thanks for watching.